Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
And it's a Tuesday. It's July 15th, 2025. Hope you're having a great day as we sail through summer with EWTN. Today is a feast day of another favorite of mine, San Bonaventura. Good fortune. St. Bonaventure, pray for us. He was a leader of the Franciscan order, a great contributor to theology and inspiration for the church. And also, it is said that he was cured of a serious illness by St. Francis of Assisi himself. Now, he's associated very strongly with one of my favorite little towns in central Italy, in the northern Lazio region. It's known as the Civita Bagno Reggio. There's Bagno Reggio, which is a larger city across the valley, and then there's the Civita. Phenomenal place. I already posted some pictures and a video that I did there when Deacon Dom and I finally had the opportunity to stay overnight in this little precious, tiny, tiny village. More on that coming up in the second hour. But St. Bonaventure is worth studying. He did so much in terms of talking about philosophy and theology. He was a doctor of the church. He was a bishop, the Bishop of Albano, and just a great contributor and very strongly associated with the great work of St. Francis, and was even considered one of his top official biographers. So more on that a little bit later on in the program, but St. Bonaventure, the angelic or seraphic doctor, pray for us today. We have more issues with the weather, and not just in Texas, but out east. We'll have the weather for you in just a second. But I do want to give you our fabulous rundown for today. We have Bill Donahue, really doesn't need any introduction, the president of the Catholic League. We are going to be talking about a story that broke recently in the last week about the IRS saying churches will not get any negative effects from talking about political candidates from the pulpit. So this is a recent ruling from the IRS. And so Bill did an editorial piece that's posted on the Catholic League website this morning, but we're also going to talk about it in relationship to what the bishops are saying. The bishops also put out a statement last week saying that they are going to continue the status quo situation where they're not going to be endorsing political candidates. So that's what the statement is saying from the church. We'll get Bill's response and also just the idea of what the IRS was trying to do with the Johnson Amendment. That's coming up with Bill Donahue right after the break. And then Kelsey Reinhardt, who's the president of Catholic Vote. We're going to be talking about the Health and Human Services Secretary asking the FDA commissioner to review the latest information on the abortion pill, mifepristone. So we're going to be talking about that and the pro-life issues from a national perspective this morning with Kelsey Reinhardt, and then a little bit more on the second hour of the program as we get later into the show. Weather-wise, again, we have got some problems across the country. And again, Texas still being impacted, but also now the National Weather Service is telling us severe weather threats across the plains, dangerous heat and wildfire concerns to the west. So here are the details. Severe thunderstorms are expected across the central plains, accompanied by damaging wind gusts and large hail. In addition, heavy rainfall may lead to instances of flash flooding from the plains and the mid-Atlantic regions. A heavy rainfall threat continues across Florida and across the northern Gulf as we monitor a tropical disturbance tracking westward. And then we still have critical fire weather for the Great Basin. So if you are traveling today, keep these weather conditions in mind. I did want to remind you that on Facebook, I forgot to mention this earlier when I was talking about St. Bonaventure, our feast for today. We did post again, I think I said this, maybe not, beautiful pictures of Bagno Reggio that we took when I was there with Deacon Dom back in early June, where we stayed overnight in this precious little town. It's just out of this world. It's so surreal. You can't even believe it. It's also in the book Italy's Shrines and Wonders, and it's featured in the Saints in Italy series. I did a whole segment standing outside with this beautiful backdrop of the town as the sun was setting. It's just crazy. Again, it looks fake. It looks like a green screen. It's so gorgeous. So check it out. You can go to my Facebook page through teresatomeo.com, Facebook at Mrs. Teresa Tomeo. It's also on the Italy page. And of course, please check out the beautiful series that EWTN produced for the Learn series. Of course, Mission Advancement is always doing such cool things. You can go to ewtn.com/Saints in Italy. And the good news is it's free. So there you go. It is 4 minutes past the hour. It is a busy news morning today. Do hope you're having a blessed almost middle of the week, July 15th, Tuesday, 2025. Time now to take a look at the news on EWTN. Well, as we mentioned earlier, the weather is still creating all kinds of problems across the country. Mark Mayfield tells us ongoing rain hampering recovery efforts still in the flood-ravaged Texas Hill Country.
Search and rescue efforts were put on hold Monday after a weekend storm brought more dangerous floods to central Texas. More than 160 people are still missing after the July 4th floods claimed some 130 lives. The Curry County Joint Information Center said on Monday that up to 7 inches more rain had fallen and another 2 inches were in the forecast. Heavy rain resulted in rescues and evacuations in other Texas counties, but no deaths or injuries were reported. I'm Mark Mayfield.
East Coast storms, meanwhile, impacting millions. Flash flood warnings went out yesterday for parts of New York City and New Jersey, where things got so bad the governor, Phil Murphy, declaring a state of emergency. The storm system sending floodwaters rushing through New York subway stations, causing mass transit nightmares. Flights into and out of the region also saw many delays. Forecasters say scattered thunderstorms, as you heard in the weather, will hit the region again today and drop more rain on an already waterlogged area. And cleanup is underway, and some major roads are starting to reopen in the lower Hudson Valley after severe flash flooding last night. Scott Pringle has that story.
More than 4 inches of rain fell quickly in parts of Westchester County, and that caused a number of vehicles to get stuck and submerged. Rescues had to take place as well. In Rockland County, Nanuet, Muncie, and Spring Valley, they're among the communities to experience flooding and stranded vehicles.
We just realized this would look like we're going to clear, and all of a sudden we got through it. The car just shut off.
So much flooding. It's flooding everywhere. There's so much rain. It's too much.
Sections of the Bronx River Parkway closed for morning rush. Scott Pringle, NBC News Radio, New York.
And as he continued his summer holidays in the town of Castel Gandolfo, south of Rome today, the Holy Father presiding at a mass in the chapel of the Carabinieri headquarters in the hilltop town near Rome. The Carabinieri are a form of military police falling under the authority of the Italian armed forces and whose responsibilities include inland public order and security. He recalled that they recently celebrated their 75th anniversary of the proclamation of the Faithful Virgin as patroness of their corps. In the wake of the Second World War, the Carabinieri looked to Mary's faithfulness, the Pope said, as a model of every officer's fidelity to the Italian people and their country. The Pope then expressing his gratitude to the Carabinieri for their noble and demanding service to the Italian people and for protecting the millions of pilgrims visiting Rome. In the face of injustices, he said, that wound the social order, do not yield to the temptation to think that evil can prevail. Especially, the Pope said, in this time of war and violence, remain faithful to your oath as servants of the state. Answer crime with the force of law and honesty. Governor Ron DeSantis was in Sarasota, Florida yesterday to take a victory lap over everything in which he says that Florida is ranked number one. And he also says there's now another area where the state is tops in the nation, religious liberty and freedom. The governor says Florida has been ranked number one by the Texas-based First Liberty Institute, a nonprofit law firm that litigates First Amendment cases.
This is a comprehensive, peer-reviewed comparison of how all 50 states protect religious liberty through public law.
And the governor also spoke about some of the criteria used to judge states' performance in religious liberty.
It evaluates factors such as religious exemptions, protections for religious organizations and schools, and the freedom of individuals to live out their faith in both their private but also public lives.
The governor claims religion is central to Florida's way of life, but has been under assault over the last 10 years. Meanwhile, the state of Florida is preparing to carry out its 8th execution of the year, and that will happen today. Michael Bell facing lethal injection for a 1993 double murder. If it proceeds as scheduled, it will mark the highest number of executions in a decade. Bell will be the 26th inmate executed nationwide in 2025, the most since 2015. President Trump will be placing a 100% tariff on Russia if there's no deal soon in Ukraine.
We're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days.
While meeting with the NATO secretary, Trump also announcing a new deal to sell top-of-the-line weaponry to NATO, including defensive Patriot missiles meant for distribution in Ukraine. Trump had been blaming both sides for the continued war, but lately has been putting most of the blame on President Putin, adding he thought he had a deal in place about 4 times. A big victory again for the president from the Supreme Court. Brian Shook tells us the High Court allowing the Trump administration to resume layoffs at the Department of Education.
U.S. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon is pleased at Monday's ruling.
This is a real victory, I think, for the future of American education.
McMahon said not being able to fire department personnel was a roadblock to the White House goal of returning education back to the states and out of the hands of the federal government. The court ruled 6-3 to lift a judge's order that reinstated employees let go in mass layoffs. I'm Brian Shook.
Some officials say adequate staffing could have saved more lives in the deadly fire at a nursing home in Fall River, Massachusetts, that killed at least 9 people. International Association of Firefighters President Edward Kelly.
Had they been staffed properly up to national standards, there would have been 8 more firefighters effecting rescues here last night. There's no doubt that would have made a difference in the amount of people that we lost.
Kelly is calling on the mayor of Fall River to increase the number of firefighters per truck to 4. The Firefighters Union president, Michael O'Regan, says that in Fall River, lives are a budgetary concern, adding that the fire was an example of that. Major ice cream makers in the U.S. are eliminating artificial food dyes from their products by 2028. Health and Human Services Chief Robert F. Kennedy Jr. making the announcement yesterday.
This is relevant to my favorite food, which is ice cream. And
he thanked the manufacturers for getting on board with his latest push to eliminate bad dyes from food production. He went on to say he's a big fan of the dairy industry and will soon be announcing new dietary guidelines promoting whole milk, cheese, and yogurt. He said those items have been unfairly attacked over the past decades. The use of vaccines in the U.S. will be the focus of a congressional hearing today. The Senate Homeland Security Subcommittee holding a hearing titled Voices of the Vaccine Injured, and it's chaired by Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. He has expressed skepticism and concern about vaccines, especially the COVID-19 vaccines. And the Pentagon is moving forward with AI by awarding contracts worth up to $200 million to companies including Elon Musk's AI, OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic. The Defense Department says it will begin using Musk's generative AI tool as part of a broader push to accelerate AI adoption across key mission areas. And Meta says it's going to crack down on unoriginal posts on Facebook, those that use other people's texts, photos, or videos. The company is saying yesterday it has already removed some 10 million profiles this year that were impersonating other content creators. It's also taken measures against some 500,000 accounts and it said were engaged in spammy or fake behavior. The announcement comes after similar moves at YouTube, which said it was also targeting unoriginal videos, including those that have been easier to create thanks to AI. And Daniel Martindale tells us a former candidate for Ventura County, California sheriff is accused of trying to register for cats to vote in the election last year.
On Monday, Chatsworth resident Bruce Boyer was ordered to stand trial. Prosecutors say Boyer tried to enroll Cool T. Cat, Estrella D. Tigre, Fritz T. Cat, and Sylvester T. Cat as voters. All of the cats had the same address Boyer listed on his candidacy forms with Ventura County. Boyer also previously ran for Congress and for county clerk recorder. I'm Daniel Martindale.
And it now costs a little bit more to mail a letter using the United States Postal Service. On Sunday, the price for that first-class mail forever stamp jumping from 73 cents to 78 cents. The price increase is part of the post office's 10-year financial stability plan. It's a Tuesday. Looking forward to chatting with Bill Donahue from the Catholic League. That's up next. Thanks for tuning in to Catholic Connection here on EWTN. We'll be right back. For years, the IRS and others have been claiming that you can't speak your mind about a particular, even issue sometimes, or candidate. Now, the Catholic Church has been very consistent in saying we don't endorse political candidates, and Bill and I were just talking about that during the break. I think that's a wise decision, my personal opinion, and Bill agrees. Once you go down that road, it can be dangerous. But there has also been a lot of pressure on the church and other religious organizations, including Bill's Catholic League. You can't say too much about this, that, or the other thing when it comes to conservative issues, because then you were worried, or not that it stopped a bill at any time, but might be worried about what the IRS might do. So, Bill, new decision from the IRS regarding the Johnson Amendment, and you wrote a really good piece about that that's already up that you're releasing this morning. What are your thoughts? Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Well, on the one sense, I am relieved that it allows people like myself, after all, we're an advocacy organization, and if you're not allowed to advocate, then you might as well shut us down. There was an attempt to do something like that with me right before Thanksgiving in 2008 when Obama had gotten elected. The IRS came after me, said that there were questions about whether or not we violated their code. And I said, wait a minute, I'm just issuing news release and reports on subjects that are of interest to us, such as abortion and the like. You're telling me that I don't have a right to do that? Well, we're looking into it. It went on for about a year and a half, and without going through all the detail, they basically gave me a slap on the wrist and said, interesting, they said, well, you did get involved in the political campaign, but you didn't do it intentionally. And I said, no, I didn't get involved in the political campaign simply by addressing issues. That's what we do. But it was intentional, please. I know what I was doing. So, but the idea is that it's good to have the IRS backing off, even if they're saying we didn't really change. They really did change. Believe me, I went through it.
Yeah, well, so did a lot of other people. I mean, they would even, there was some pressure even on Catholic media outlets as well, especially those who were speaking out strongly about pro-life issues. And that's the item we discussed during the break, is that sometimes the IRS gave the impression here and there, kind of like, if you read between the lines, that you couldn't even talk about strong issues such as abortion or, so-called same-sex marriage from the pulpit, which is obviously based on church teaching, because then people would, in their minds, think about a particular candidate and then claim the priest or the deacon or whomever the bishop was supporting a particular party or candidate. But we're called to talk about those issues.
Exactly. I mean, what are the Catholic media there for? Why is the Catholic League there? We defend religious liberty, and of course we have to call out those people who are threats to it, some of whom are in public office. It's one thing to say you shouldn't endorse a candidate. I have no plans on doing that. I leave the door open, maybe at some point if we got in some horrendous situation. Well, I have no plans on doing that. I think that's a mistake. But you can't tell me that I can't talk about an attack on the Little Sisters of the Poor under Obama, or what went on under Biden, which is on the front page of Catalyst, our monthly journal. The FBI spy ring was big. New info is alarming. Of course I'm going to take on the FBI when they have an anti-Catholic cell group working within it, as they did under the Biden administration. What else are we here for? And and there's a lot of duplicity on this stuff, too. I mean, when the candidates run for public office, there's not a black church in America that the candidates aren't welcome to speak, and sometimes they endorse and go beyond that. I've always thought that was discriminatory. The Catholic Church, I have to defend the right of Archbishop of New York, Cardinal O'Connor, for his right to even address abortion. Was a big issue back in the 1990s on this. But yet, so this, like I say, this is rife for mischief, and it was impractical in the first place, the original code. They say they really haven't changed it. They had to change it, and it's at least it gives more. It's a more generous interpretation now, and I welcome it.
Talking with Bill Donahue, president of the Catholic League. So we were discussing briefly during the break, what do you think of the bishops putting out the statement saying they're going to continue with the status quo and not endorse candidates? I agree with you. I think it's a good way to go. I don't think we should go down that road of endorsing candidates in the pulpit.
By addressing the policies, it makes it clear to people how they feel. Now, the bishops on their policies, as we know, take a more liberal position on immigration than many Catholics. They also take a very conservative position dealing with marriage and sexuality and abortion. So, but that's fine then, and then people will decide on the overall thing. Once you get into the micromanagement, I think that's a mistake.
Do you think this will be a good news for, let's say, the priest who really wants to talk about the issue of life? Because oftentimes, and my husband's been through this as a deacon, he's been a deacon for almost 13 years now, you talk about abortion. You just talk about the issue with the church teachers, you quote the catechism, you quote JP2 or whomever, and then you get accused of being part of a particular party and pushing a particular candidate. When you're simply talking about the issues, for example, as you're about to go down for the March for Life or during October, which is, pro-life month, I'm hoping that more will feel free to speak out. What do you think?
I think they will. I mean, don't forget, we do have some enclaves of some very liberal, for that matter, very conservative Catholic churches. So we pretty much know what the congregation is going to hear. The question is, most parishes, I believe, are not strongly one way or the other. So I don't see a glacial change in the way priests will talk. But during an election season, and, take the example I mentioned about the FBI spy ring, yeah, I mean, they really should be addressing that at the pulpit because, quite frankly, I'm their church every Sunday, and my church is fairly conservative. They almost never talk about these issues, almost never. Hopefully now they will.
I wonder how many people even knew outside of Catholic circles, and folks who listen to us and follow you and follow our outlets realize what happened with that FBI craziness that went on under the Biden administration. And when they came out and said, it was only one office, I thought to myself, yeah,
right.
and I'm Irish.
Yeah. No.
Right? Yeah.
Believe me, they don't know, because I have most of my friends are Catholic, and they're practicing for the most part, and they are. Some of them are aware of on the surface. They know there's something going on. They don't know the details, and I don't blame them. These people are busy taking their regular lives going on. But if they heard it from the pulpit, and I don't mean fire and brimstone, I don't mean that every single Sunday turn into a political exercise. I don't want that either. But they could at least make some comments. I think you should know more about these subjects and perhaps check out certain websites at Ave Maria, whatever they want to do, to give more information. Or in the parish bulletin, they can be more exact. Because, again, I mean, they're talking about some nice platitudes and some nice historical understandings and theology, but there should be a time, particularly during the electoral season. If our rights are under attack and the clergy are not going to bring it to the fore with the people, then there's a delinquency there.
There also has to be a better explanation of what religious freedom means and is, and what our founding fathers meant by that, because it's not only the fact that we can go to Mass every week or go to church every week. It's about being able to live your life and speak up in the public square and be protected by the First Amendment. And so many people associate religious freedom. Well, I can still go to Mass. I can still receive the sacrament. So what's the big deal, right?
Well, don't forget, it was Hillary Clinton and others who came up with the idea that we have freedom to worship. Well, when people understand what that means, it means that you can say the rosary in your church. That's what that means. Don't take it outside, okay? I have freedom of religion. Freedom of religion is not just private in a church. It's also a public expression, such as what we're doing right now in having conversation. If you did this to music and you said you can only have music in a concert hall, but not in a park, or if you said the same about art, you have to go to a museum in order to see it, but you can't have any artistic expression along sidewalks and parks and the like, people would say that's anti-music, it's anti-art. Well, it's anti-religion to tell me that you have to cabinet, to use the legal term here, and just make sure that it's done inside closed doors so that the public has no way of finding out about it. That's an animus. That's an hostility, and it's palpable, and we've got to get rid of it, and the American people need to know more about it. You're right. They need to know the ins and outs of what religious liberty was supposed to mean and what it's evolved into today.
Amen. Well said. Our friend Bill Donahue, president of the Catholic League here on Catholic Connection. Check out his great work, his books, catholicleague.org. We'll be right back. St. Bonaventure, pray for us. It is Tuesday, July 15th, feast day of the Angelic Doctor from Central Italy. Kelsey Reinhardt is on the phone with us this morning. She's the head of Catholic Vote, another wonderful organization that is out there defending our Catholic faith and freedoms, religious freedom. They do such a great job. Gosh, Kelsey, I know there's so much to talk about, but let's start with what's happening with the latest information and review on the abortion pill, mifepristone. And then I have so many questions for you on that, but other issues. Thanks for joining us this morning. What's the latest with the review of the information on the abortion pill?
Well, the latest is that it's in the hands of the FDA Commissioner, Dr. Marty Makary, and we're very hopeful that there will be a rollback on what has been a sort of very loose policy implemented after after COVID and during the Biden administration. But I think it's worth taking a look at the entire history of mifepristone, of the abortion pill, to really see how absolutely politicized this medicine has been. And I'd love to go through that with you, Teresa.
Sure, go ahead. Very interested to hear it.
Yeah, I don't know that most people know that mifepristone was actually Planned Parenthood's idea to privatize abortion, to make it a do-it-yourself procedure at home. They began working on this and it was first synthesized in France in 1980 because they understood that the spread of abortion clinics, which had become popular after Roe versus Wade, were actually becoming increasingly unpopular. And so they thought that the legal tide was turning against Roe, which, as we know in Dobbs, did happen. And so they thought, if we can find a way to privatize abortion and make it a do-at-home procedure, it would keep this industry afloat. And so in 1998, only France and communist China had approved it. And this alone should give us pause.
Hello, right?
Yes, exactly. And 1989, the FDA banned mifepristone from being imported to the U.S., so there's historical precedence for this being banned. And then in 1993, President Clinton told the FDA to take another look, and by 2000, under pressure from the abortion lobby and still under Clinton, the FDA approved it. So I think we have to look at the politicization of this drug from the very beginning. It was understood to be very dangerous, and by 2011, just 11 years after the FDA had approved it, they had to implement a risk evaluation and mitigation strategy, or REMS for short. And that meant you had to go to a hospital or clinic to get it. 3 medical visits were required. And in some states, the doctor actually had to be physically present when the woman took the pill.
Well, that makes sense because it's so strong and it's so dangerous. I mean, of course. And now it's just, get it through the mail. Get it wherever over the. This is insane if they're so concerned about reproductive health, right?
And you're right, Teresa. That's what the EPP, the Ethics and Public Policy Center study showed, was that this is so dangerous. We were sold a lie. Well, and I don't know that any of us believed it in terms of the Catholic population or common sense folks, but we were sold a lie that it was as safe as Tylenol. And what the FDA did was another sleight of hand with the data. And we've seen that Robert Kennedy.
Safe. Wait a minute. I have to stop you there. I want you to repeat that. As safe as Tylenol. So, over-the-counter pain medication you take for aches and pains or a headache, it's equal to is the same as mifepristone. Are you kidding me?
Yes, and that's. I've never seen a study like the study that the the Ethics and Public Policy Center put out with the data that they did. The danger. There's 11% of these. The times that this was used resulted in sepsis, in hemorrhages, in hospitalization. I have never seen 11% of Tylenol patients hospitalized for use of Tylenol. This is really blatant politicization of the medicine. And again, they did a sleight of hand with the data. What did they do? They only compared the deaths of Tylenol with the deaths of the abortion pill. And, of course, not counting the deaths of the child, but just of the women and girls who took it. So this was a very blatant politicization of the Biden administration to say, it's safer than Tylenol. But fast forward to 2023, finally a U.S. district judge called it like it is, and they said that the FDA's process was flawed. And another panel of judges agreed. They didn't ban the drug, but they said at least it should not be sent by mail, not prescribed through telemedicine, require in-person visits. But then, of course, as we've seen with a lot of issues in our nation right now, another judge came along and said, wait a minute, these rules are creating access barriers. And so they rolled the restrictions back again. And now we have this science that's saying, we simply cannot go on with this being less regulated than antidiarrheals like Lomotil or Motofin. We don't even let people get over-the-counter Sudafed in some instances because we're worried about what teenagers or other actors will do with it. And so the idea that this is going to be less regulated than those drugs the science just doesn't bear it out.
How much of this is related to the bottom line? Because they know, the industry, the abortion industry knows that it's getting more and more difficult. Word is getting out there, especially with the last election, that even if people call themselves pro-choice, they want limits, a lot of limits on abortion. And they know they're losing support, but they need the money. And this is a quick fix in terms of the dollar, right?
Yeah, they do. They do need the money, and I think that we've seen that there's a lot of corruption in healthcare related back to these financial incentives, and yet I think that the perversion here is really intensely political, more than it is financial. I mean,
that's a good point.
This is something that just no honest researcher and statistician can respond to the fact that there's 11% of women are experiencing these complications like hemorrhage, sepsis, surgery, hospitalization. I mean, that's 22 times higher than the FDA's claimed rate. I mean,
look at Abby Johnson's experience in her book, right? Unplanned. And she talks about that in the book, and we saw it in the film in terms of what she suffered when she took the abortion pill. It is such a lie, Kelsey. It's so political, but they just lie completely. And women, their health is being greatly affected in the course of lives of the children.
Well, and you've pointed out such a great point. You know, a lot of these women, when they take this pill, they experience a great deal of shame around the procedure. They're at home having sepsis, having hemorrhage, you know, and they're afraid to call into their doctor. And these complications, you know, worsen because, you know, they're embarrassed what they've done. People don't know that there's an abortion pill reversal procedure out there, which I think is really important to proclaim, and that's experienced a lot of censorship on online and whatnot. But you know, there's so much harm that's happening to women, and it's really happening in these you know, in the privacy of their homes, where you know they're afraid to even admit to themselves that this is so dangerous, you know, or they don't have the medical capacity to recognize that they shouldn't be bleeding to the extent that they are, and so this pill is dastardly. It is so devastating for women and girls.
Yeah. And also then the home becomes, you know, the place of the trauma. It's bad enough when women have that experience at an abortion facility, but then the home becomes a place of the trauma. And so they have this ongoing psychological fallout and spiritual fallout because of what happened. I mean, this is just so ridiculous. The abortion pill is equal to Tylenol. Yeah, we were born, but not yesterday. Give me a break. More with Kelsey Reinhardt, president of Catholic Vote, talking about information coming out on mifepristone, the review, and also what we can do about it, what we should be doing. We certainly need to educate ourselves on this and what they've been trying to sell us for so many years. We'll be right back. 39 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. You know, thinking about our beautiful gospel for this weekend on Sunday, the Good Samaritan, and how the Lord tells the man of the law, kind of turns everything on its head. And the Pope talked about this in his homily on Sunday, and so did our associate pastor. And I discussed this in 2 Cents yesterday in the second hour of the program. The Lord doesn't give the man of the law an exact answer as to, okay, well, who is my neighbor? The man of the law wanted to justify himself, and Scripture even uses that phrase. He wanted to justify himself, and he asked a question of Jesus. And so he was expecting a list. Okay, this person is your neighbor. This person is your neighbor. This person is your neighbor. So if you cover all these people, you got your nice little box, and you're good to go. But what the Lord turned it on him and said, he asked him, who's best served? The man on the road who was obviously beaten and needed help. And the response was the Good Samaritan. So what Jesus was asking, he's asking us the same thing. And it gets to what we're talking about this morning, both with Bill Donahue and with our interview right now with Kelsey. God is asking us to keep our eyes open, and that we have to do the work and say, okay, well, who's my brother and sister? Who's my neighbor? And what do I need to do? In addition to, obviously, being pro-life and supporting the unborn, women in, of course, unplanned pregnancies, women who find themselves in very difficult situations, including the elderly, of course, all of these issues. But at the same time, it's broader than that. God is asking us, and the Pope said this too, to work at this and to recognize needs. And this issue that we're talking about right now, as Kelsey has so eloquently been explaining for us from the Catholic Vote, this push of the abortion pill, It's up to us to understand what's happening here. It is very political, but the women who find themselves in desperate situations and don't know that there's help out there, don't know about the local pregnancy resource center, don't know that the abortion pill can be reversed, it's up to us to see these women as our neighbors and to give them the information and to support the pregnancy resource centers and the pro-life doctors in the communities to make sure they have that information. Think about how ridiculous this is. Putting information out there that this pill is equal to any types of complications with Tylenol. Are you kidding me? This is just it's so frustrating to me that they've been able to get away with this kind of nonsense for decades. That's one of the reasons why I wrote my book, Extreme Makeover, because I was so fed up as a woman when I started to finally study the church teaching and see and do the research on what was going on with the industry of abortion and the culture of death. I was like, basta, enough already. Anyhow, Kelsey, I just had to get that on my system. I'm Italian, and I had to say those things because it's all true. Right, sister?
It is all true. It is all true. I mean, mifepristone is a chemical that interferes with progesterone, which is a natural hormone necessary for a healthy pregnancy. It's still banned in several countries. And, I think you're absolutely right. Pregnancy isn't a disease. It doesn't need to be treated. There are a lot of lies going on in this whole field. And I'll point out, too, Teresa, that 63% of abortions, according to the the Guttmacher Institute, are through the abortion pill. So, this is really important for people to be educated and informed on this. And I think also, to take action. And the Ethics and Public Policy Center is seeking public comments on 3 pending FDA citizen petitions. They're all from the left, all seeking to remove any restrictions on abortion drugs. And people can go to their website and submit comments on all of them. I think that's a great thing to do in addition to everything that you've just mentioned, supporting pregnancy resource centers, helping women, letting them know that there is an abortion pill reversal.
I'm really praying for, we were talking about this during the break, for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's done some very good things in terms of our health and food and the quality of medicine and whatnot. He was at least willing to review this, which is huge, even though he says, and he admitted this during the campaign, that he considers himself pro-choice, but he's rolled it back, and I just think that we just really need to pray for him because at least he was willing to make sure this was happening, which is super important, and I think that's a real positive sign. What do you think?
I couldn't agree more. This is a very positive sign, and what happens now, the FDA decides what's next, and the fight isn't over. If they keep the current rules, pro-lifers will challenge it. If they tighten the regulations, the abortion lobby will sue. So eventually, Teresa, I think what we're going to see is that this will land back at the Supreme Court. Only this time, the Supreme Court will have the science. And I think that this is going to be, one of those cases where upon reviewing data like what the Ethics and Public Policy has put together, it's going to be very difficult for them to make a convincing case that this is not just pushing politics to have this drug approved.
Absolutely. Talking with Kelsey Reinhardt, the president of Catholic Vote. Do we know, Kelsey, how long this review process with the FDA commissioner is? I mean, is it ongoing? Are you expecting to hear anything soon? What's the latest with that?
We don't know how long it's going to take. And I think, that's part of this is I haven't, the study hasn't been peer reviewed. And so he's going to have his data persons go all the way through this and take a look at everything that's been aggregated and shown to be the case. So I think it should be some matter of time, but we're a little bit unclear of the timeline at this moment.
Okay, but at least it's being reviewed, which is super important. And you mentioned the petition. Where do they find the petitions? At the Ethics and Policy Center website?
You can go to the Ethics and Public Policy website for that petition. As I mentioned, there's 3 of them, and they're all citizen petitions that, allow you to submit comments and weigh in on where these regulations are going. Rep. Andy Harris also has something in the House, and he's attempting to, again, just side with people that this really needs to be reviewed. We need to at least go back to where this drug was in 2000, requiring an in-person visit, requiring, all of the extra protections around it. And certainly, we want the whole thing to be removed at one point. But as I say, there's very little outcomes that have this not ending in the Supreme Court because of what's at stake here. So I do think that if we see even the rollback to 2000, this will end up in court again and then push its way up to the Supreme Court.
Do you think more people are becoming aware of the situation and how we have been lied to, for so many years? The abortion industry across the board, it's ridiculous in terms of what they sold the American people, especially women. Do you think people are beginning to wake up to that?
I do think people are beginning to wake up to that. And I will say this about Robert Kennedy. He has done so much in this MAHA movement, and the women in the MAHA movement have done so much to really say, we need to take an honest look at what's happening here with our drugs, and there is a real and food safety standards and all sorts of other things that affect health. There's a real cultural component to these pieces. Moms who want to shop for foods free of red dye, had to put so much extra money and intentionality into it, and now, based upon what happened yesterday, all ice cream manufacturers are removing food coloring dyes. So I do think that there's a huge cultural component to this, that these shifts, when they happen at the bigger and larger levels, after a significant portion of the population has kind of awoken to the truth, they gain a lot of steam, and I think we're seeing that in the pro-life movement. There is so much momentum, and we see with the defunding of Planned Parenthood, more closures happening. We're really excited about where things are going in that direction. It's actually gaining a really terminal velocity here, and we just need to think creatively about how to advance on some of these new fronts, regarding mifepristone and the abortion pill and others.
I do think that even though it's only for a year, and we've been talking about this a lot with experts such as yourself and also with Lewis Brown from Christ Medicus, even though it's only for a year, it does make a huge statement. And I think getting the word out about how much money Planned Parenthood has been receiving, compliments of us, as in the taxpayers, that is eye-opening for people. Just that because most people don't even know how much money they get from the government. And they don't even know how much money they make in addition to how much money they get from the government each year. So getting that out there, this whole education effort, Kelsey, I think is so important.
Yeah, let them fund themselves. And even though this provision right now is for 1 year, Catholic Vote is committed to fighting to make this, to extend this. And I will say that, the closures are real. When a 1 year deficit or a 1 year, impact forces them to close an office, that's not going to reopen next year if the funding returns, and we'll be there to fight to make sure that doesn't happen.
I pulled up the report, and we did a story on this when this first came out because it's dated April 28, 2025, and people can find it at eppc.org, Kelsey, in addition to the petitions that you mentioned. But even if you just read the summary notes, that alone is just chilling. As you mentioned, you say nearly 11% of women experience sepsis, infection, hemorrhaging, or other serious adverse events within 45 days following a mifepristone abortion. The real-world rate of serious adverse effects following the drug is at least 22 times as high as a summary figure of less than 0.5% in clinical trials reported on the drug label. And then they're saying the FDA should further investigate the harm mifepristone causes to women and, based on objective safety criteria, reconsider its approval altogether. And you can go through this summary. It's not that long, and their key findings. This is what I was talking about when we started this segment. This is part of what our Lord is telling us. We have to educate ourselves. We have to open our eyes. We have to realize what the heck has been going on with this abortion industry. It is nothing but lies and politics, and it's utterly disgusting and evil. It's the culture of death all over the place. I just get so upset when I see stories like this. I just can't help it because we've been lied to.
Focus on those numbers. 0.5% of women, they claim. 0.5%. 22 times higher. And then you have to really, in your mind, in your imagination, inform your morality and give it a real big, impetus to do something, because those stories of sepsis and hemorrhaging, you've got to think about the woman on the floor of her bathroom, literally on the edge of something incredibly serious that could lead to death. These are the real stories behind what this data is telling us. And that's what the abortion lobby has hidden. And serious researchers have been raising alarm bells for years. The Charlotte Lozier Institute consistently pointed out that there was no credible scientific study comparing abortion pills to Tylenol. They said that the FDA only looked at death rates, not serious complications like sepsis or hemorrhage. That's how they did their sleight of hand with the data. And the comparison is nonsense. I mean, Tylenol deaths involve overuse or misuse, while abortion drug complications happen under medical supervision.
Right.
So the abortion industry has never answered these points, and they're going to be held accountable.
Well, they haven't had to because none of the media ask those questions. That's the problem. That's a big part of the problem. The media cover for them just like they cover for other people on the left in the culture of death. And they should be doing their homework with this kind of thing. They should be all over this if they're so concerned, about women and women's rights. There's another section that's really important, and we touched on this briefly, Kelsey, in this report from the Ethics and Public Policy Center, the increasing market share of chemical abortion. That's a huge part of it. I mean, you mentioned politics, but I think they're pretty close together here because they know that they can make a lot of money with this thing without a lot of work.
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, it's 63% of abortions right now.
63%.
63%. So follow the money and take a look at what's happening here. I think that the abortion industry is going to have a very hard time refuting this. The study actually, the sample size was 865,000 persons. And this is recent data, too, Teresa. It's 2017 to 2023. So, this is not the abortion pill from 20 years ago data that they studied. Right.
This is very recent.
This is going to be very hard to refute. And
Kelsey, thank you. We're out of time, but I can't thank you enough. Give us your website real quick, hon, so people can check out the great work at Catholic Vote.
Yes, CatholicVote.org, and sign up for our daily newsletter, The Loop, to stay informed on all things politics and Catholicism.
God bless. We'll be right back. Thanks so much for tuning in to Catholic Connection on a Tuesday, July 15th. Coming up in the second hour on EWTN Radio Extra. Very excited to talk with the retiring Will Theirfelders. Now, he was 21 years presidency at Belmont Abbey College. I had the opportunity to meet him when I spoke there for a pro-life fundraiser. What a great man. And, of course, we are going to be talking about this in our Newman Guide News this morning. And then also, prior to that, we are going to be taking a look at the saint of the day and the town that is closely associated with him. We're going to talk about Saint Bonaventure and the Civita, Bagno Reggio. I am telling you, you need to put this on your Italy bucket list. But there's so many great stories about Saint Bonaventure, his closeness to, of course, the Franciscan order, and his St. Francis healing that he had, and the little cave chapels in the Civita where he prayed. I mean, it's just an amazing place to go. It's got a lot of beauty, but it also has a lot of beauty related to our faith. So we'll talk about that in our next hour of Catholic Connection. And please, please, please do some homework regarding this situation with this abortion pill. We need to know. We need to know the truth. And as our Lord said, the truth will set us free. We have been sold such a line of nonsense and lies and evil with the culture of death, especially as it pertains to women and abortion. It is just the opposite of what they've been saying. It's nothing about reproduction, and it certainly isn't anything about health. It's about death and evil, and we need to know the truth again so we can speak it lovingly to set people free. We'll be right back with the second hour of Catholic Connection. St. Bonaventure, the angelic doctor, pray for us on a Tuesday. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tamio, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tamio.
Hope we're having a beautiful Tuesday, continuing our programming, Catholic Connection, an EWTN production here on EWTN's Radio Extra. It is a feast of Saint Bonaventure. We're going to talk about this wonderful saint known as the angelic or seraphic doctor coming up in 2 cents. I have a real affinity to him because he is from an area very close to where Deacon Dominic and I reside when we are in Italy, in central Italy. He's only about an hour from us. His relics are in the city of Bagnoregio, which is right across from another teeny tiny town where he is also very closely related, the location of the Civita, also known as the Dying or the Floating City. I will explain, but I do want to encourage you to first sign up for, and we're going to talk about this in 2 cents, the free Saints in Italy series. It's part of our wonderful Learn series through Mission Advancement. You may simply go to ewtn.com/Saints in Italy, and you can see the different segments that we've done. It is free. You have an opportunity to purchase the book. It's based on the Italy Shrines and Wonders book from EWTN Publishing. But I do have an entire segment on reflections from the dying city. And I will explain in the break, or after the break, I should say, after the break, and when we go into 2 cents, why they call it the dying city. It sounds kind of weird, doesn't it? Well, there's a very good reason. It's also known as the floating city, and I'll explain that as well. We'll also talk about the location, how beautiful it is, how it's associated with St. Bonaventure and the Franciscans. There's just a lot in that area of Italy. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people will leave Rome and they'll fly by up to Assisi, stop in Orvieto for the Eucharistic miracle, which is amazing. Highly put that on the top, recommend you put that on the top of your bucket list. But they pass by not even knowing about Bagnoregio, or they pass by nearby Viterbo. Viterbo is known as the city of the popes. That's a hugely important, beautiful little town that also has St. Rose of Viterbo. And then Machina. Well, that's a whole other story. I can't get into that today. But get the book, Italy Shrines and Wonders, and sign up for this series because the series is free. ewtn.com/Saints in Italy. So we'll talk about that in 2 cents. And I'm very excited, as I always am, for our Newman Guide News with Kelly Salomon from the Cardinal Newman Society. Today we're going to have a special guest along with Kelly, who's also very special, of course. We are going to be joined by Dr. Bill Theirfelder, the president of Belmont Abbey College. He is actually stepping down, retiring after 21 years. He's done so much to really turn that school around and reinvigorate the college's Catholic identity. 21 years he served. I had the opportunity to meet him at a fundraiser I did there for them for their Pregnancy Resource Center, and he's such a dear man, and he also has a very interesting athletic history, and I'll explain the fun story related to that when I first met him. It is a Tuesday. Do hope your Tuesday is going well on this feast day of the wonderful St. Bonaventure. Weather still causing us problems, and not just in Texas. What National Weather Service is saying, severe thunderstorms are expected across the Central Plains, accompanied by damaging wind gusts and large hail. In addition, heavy rainfall may lead to instances of flash flooding from the plains and the mid-Atlantic regions. The heavy rainfall threat continues across the state of Florida and across the northern Gulf as we monitor a tropical disturbance tracking westward, and then we have critical fire weather for the Great Basin. That's a look at the weather. Keep that in mind if you're going to be heading to any of those affected areas, because there's a lot of bad weather out there. And that's how we start our news on a Tuesday morning, July 15th, here on EWTN Radio Extra, taking a look at what's happening in and around the world. Here we go. Well, as we mentioned, rain and bad weather, a very, very big story continuing. Mark Mayfield tells us ongoing rain still hampering recovery efforts in the flood-ravaged Texas Hill Country.
Search and rescue efforts were put on hold Monday after a weekend storm brought more dangerous floods to central Texas. More than 160 people are still missing after the July 4th floods claimed some 130 lives. The Kerr County Joint Information Center said on Monday that up to 7 inches more rain had fallen and another 2 inches were in the forecast. Heavy rain resulted in rescues and evacuations in other Texas counties, but no deaths or injuries were reported. I'm Mark Mayfield.
Meanwhile, East Coast storms, as we mentioned in the weather forecast, impacting millions as well. Flash flood warnings going out yesterday for parts of New York City and New Jersey, where things got so bad the governor, Phil Murphy, declared a state of emergency. The storm system sending floodwaters rushing through the subway stations in New York, causing mass transit nightmares, and flights in and out of the region also saw numerous delays. Forecasters again say scattered thunderstorms will hit the region today and drop more rain on an already waterlogged area. Scott Pringle tells us, meanwhile, cleanup underway and some major roads are now starting to reopen in the lower Hudson Valley in New York State after severe flash flooding last night.
More than 4 inches of rain fell quickly in parts of Westchester County, and that caused a number of vehicles to get stuck and submerged. Rescues had to take place as well. In Rockland County, Nanuet, Muncie, and Spring Valley, they're among the communities to experience flooding and stranded vehicles.
We just realized this. We looked like we were going to clear, and all of a sudden we got through it. The car just shut off.
So much flooding. It's flooding everywhere. There's so much rain. It's too much.
Sections of the Bronx River Parkway closed for morning rush. Scott Pringle, NBC News Radio, New York.
In other news this morning, as he continued his summer holiday in Castel Gandolfo on Tuesday, Pope Leo XIV presiding at a mass in the chapel of the Carabinieri headquarters in the hilltop town just south of Rome. The Carabinieri are a form of military police who fall under the authority of the Italian armed forces and whose responsibilities include inland public order and security. He recalled the Carabinieri recently celebrating the 75th anniversary of the proclamation of the Faithful Virgin as a patroness of their corps. In the wake of the Second World War, the Carabinieri looked to Mary's faithfulness as a model of every officer's fidelity to the Italian people and nation. Pope Leo then expressing his gratitude to them for their noble and demanding service to the Italian people and for protecting the millions of pilgrims visiting Rome. In the face of injustices, he says, that wound the social order, do not yield to the temptation to think that evil can prevail. He said, especially in this time of war and violence, remain faithful to your oath. As servants of the state, answer crime with the force of law and honesty. Governor DeSantis was in Sarasota yesterday taking a victory lap over everything in which he says Florida is ranked number one, and he says there's now another area where the state is tops in the nation, religious liberty. The governor says Florida has been ranked number one by the Texas-based First Liberty Institute, a nonprofit law firm that litigates First Amendment cases.
This is a comprehensive, peer-reviewed comparison of how all 50 states protect religious liberty through public law.
And the governor went on to explain some of the criteria used to judge states' performance in religious liberty.
It evaluates factors such as religious exemptions, protections for religious organizations and schools, and the freedom of individuals to live out their faith in both their private but also public lives.
The governor is saying religion is central to our way of life, but has been under assault over the last 10 years or more. Florida is preparing to carry out its 8th execution of the year today. Michael Bell facing lethal injection for a 1993 double murder. If it proceeds as scheduled, it will mark the highest number of U.S. executions in a decade. Bell would be the 26th inmate executed nationwide in 2025, the most since 2015. President Trump will be placing a 100% tariff on Russia if there is no deal soon in Ukraine.
We're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days.
While meeting with the NATO Secretary General, he announced a new deal to sell top-of-the-line weaponry to NATO, including defensive Patriot missiles meant for distribution in Ukraine. Trump also has been blaming both sides for the continued war, but lately has been putting most of it on President Putin, adding he thought he had a deal in place about 4 times. A big win, another one from the Supreme Court for President Trump. Brian Shook tells us the Supreme Court is now allowing the administration to resume the layoffs at the Department of Education.
U.S. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon is pleased at Monday's ruling.
This is a real victory, I think, for the future of American education.
McMahon said not being able to fire department personnel was a roadblock to the White House goal of returning education back to the states and out of the hands of the federal government. The court ruled 6-3 to lift a judge's order that reinstated employees let go in mass layoffs. I'm Brian Shook.
Some officials say adequate staffing could have saved more lives in the deadly fire at a nursing home in Fall River, Massachusetts that killed at least 9 people. Here's the head of the International Association of Firefighters, the president, Edward Kelly.
Had they been staffed properly up to national standards, there would have been 8 more firefighters effecting rescues here last night. There's no doubt that would have made a difference in the amount of people that we lost.
Kelly is calling on the mayor of Fall River to increase the number of firefighters per truck to 4. Fall River Firefighters Union President Michael O'Regan says that in Fall River, lives are a budgetary concern, adding that Sunday night's fire was an example of that. Also making news this morning, ice cream makers in the U.S. are eliminating artificial food dyes from their products, and they'll do that by 2028. Health and Human Services Chief Robert F. Kennedy making that announcement yesterday.
This is relevant to my favorite food, which is ice cream. And
Thank the manufacturers for getting on board with the latest push to eliminate bad dyes from food production. Kennedy went on to say he's a big fan of the dairy industry and will soon be announcing new dietary guidelines promoting whole milk, cheese, and yogurt. He said those items have been unfairly attacked over the past decades. And the use of vaccines is the focus of a congressional hearing today. The Senate Homeland Security Subcommittee holding a hearing entitled Voices of the Vaccine Injured. It's chaired by Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. Johnson has expressed skepticism about vaccines, especially the COVID-19 vaccines. And Meta says it's going to crack down on unoriginal posts on Facebook, those that use other people's text, photo, or videos. The company is saying yesterday it's already removed some 10 million profiles this year that were impersonating other content creators. It's also taken measures against some 500,000 accounts it said were engaged in spam or fake behavior. The announcement comes after similar moves at YouTube, which said it was also targeting unoriginal videos, including those that have been easier to create thanks to artificial intelligence. And get this is a true story. A former candidate for Ventura County, California sheriff, accused of trying to register 4 cats to vote, as Daniel Martindale tells us, in last year's election.
On Monday, Chatsworth resident Bruce Boyer was ordered to stand trial. Prosecutors say Boyer tried to enroll Cool T. Cat, Estrella D. Tigre, Fritz T. Cat, and Sylvester T. Cat as voters. All of the cats had the same address Boyer listed on his candidacy forms with Ventura County. Boyer also previously ran for Congress and for county clerk recorder. I'm Daniel Martindale.
It now costs a little bit more to mail that letter using the post office. On Sunday, the price for a first-class mail forever stamp jumped from 73 cents to 78 cents. A price increase is part of the United States Postal Service's 10-year financial stability plan. Last year, the United States Postal Service said there would be 5 stamp price increases over the next few years. It also plans to raise prices in January and July of next year, and also in 2027. It is a Tuesday morning. We so appreciate your listenership here on the second hour of Catholic Connection on EWTN's Radio Extra channel. We're so glad you're tuned in. Maybe you're listening on your phone. I know my friend Kelly Walquist is. Hi, Kel. Kelly is the foundress of Wine, Women in the New Evangelization, and she listens all the time on her app on EWTN because there's an app for that. So keep that in mind. Coming up, we are going to be talking about a wonderful saint and a beautiful place associated with him. It is one of the coolest places in Italy. You simply have to go. It's a must-do. The Civita, Bagno Reggio. Why is it called the Dying City or the Floating City? And what in the world does it have to do with our saint today? Oh, we shall explain up next. Stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you. Hope you're having a great day. We are talking about a beautiful saint in the one holy Catholic and Apostolic faith, Saint Bonaventure, San Bonaventura, good venture or good health. That's what that word means, Bonaventure. It's good, how do you say it? Good adventure, good fortune, Bonaventure. That's what it means in Italian. He was born in 1217 in Bagno Reggio, the Papal States, and he died in July 15th in Lyon, France. He was canonized in 1482. His feast day is today. He was a leading medieval theologian, minister general of the Franciscan order, and a cardinal bishop of Albano. I mean, he was utterly amazing. And he also was someone who wrote a biography, a top biography of St. Francis. Now, it's said that St. Francis from Assisi, of course, actually visited his area in central Italy, which is very easy to understand because Francis went all over the place, all over Europe, all over Italy, all over the world, actually. He was well traveled. And he cured Bonaventure of a serious illness. Now, the area of Bagno Reggio, along with the Civita, there's actually 2 towns in the same, very similar location. So we're talking northern Lazio. So it's about, I'd say, 90 minutes north of Rome. And it's a beautiful area on the border of Umbria. And it's the Civita, which means city in Italian. And then there's also Bagno Reggio. So the two are very closely related to Bonaventure. His relics, what's left of them, are in a beautiful church in the larger town of Bagno Reggio, and you can see them. And this place is so, so unique. I mean, I have pictures on my Facebook page this morning. You have to take a look at it. And Deacon Dom and I we've been there many times. We've taken groups there and whatnot. I've been there on our own a few times as well. We've always wanted to stay overnight in Bagno Reggio because it's just such a cool place. And so we finally did earlier in June. We had a beautiful room in this very old medieval house, and the room looked like something out of a castle. And it was so inexpensive. I'm telling you, it was so affordable, but it was beautiful. And we had 2 balconies, and we literally just sat outside and practiced Il Dolce Far Niente, the sweetness doing nothing, because the scenery around this place, the town itself is gorgeous, but the scenery is like crazy. And you'll be able to notice that from the pictures I posted this morning. But anyway, the reason I wanted to talk about this area is that the town itself gives us an opportunity for a lot of reflection. And especially if we consider Bonaventure, who was such a faithful servant of the Lord that he used to pray in caves in that area. You can go there, and before you cross over on this very long bridge that's about 3/4 of a mile long that you have to get to, and you can't take a car up to the town of Bagno Reggio because the area is so sensitive. That's why it's called the Dying City, because the ground on which it sits is made of this very kind of like soft soil, and so it keeps eroding. And the area is similar around it, which is called the Badlands, but they're so gorgeous. And so it's called the Dying City, but it's also been called the Floating City because when there's cloud cover, a little bit of clouds or fog, it pops out of the mountain and literally looks like it's floating on clouds. So it's known as the Dying or the Floating City. But it's such a peaceful, special place, especially if you stay there overnight when the crowds and the tourists, although not that many do visit because it does take a little bit of an effort to get there. But there are lovely little shops, and there's cute little wine bars, and also some very well critiqued restaurants as well that are of Michelin star standard. So it's a great place to hang out. You can't spend more than a day there. There's not much to do, but there's a lot to take, I think, from being called the Dying City and what it represents for our faith. And so that's why I featured the town in my series, which is based on my book, Italy's Rise and Wonders. And it's reflections from the Dying City. And the series, of course, is Saints in Italy. You can find it, EWTN.com/Saints in Italy. It's free. But Richard is going to play this clip now, and you can see the video if you go to the online series. But we'll share the audio with you. Reflections from the Dying City of the Civita, Bagno Reggio, the birthplace of our saint of the day, Saint Bonaventure. Here we go.
Benvenuto, welcome once again to the EWTN Learn series. I'm Teresa Tamio, continuing our journey through Italy. We're in a very unique location, one that is certainly off the beaten path. What's behind me, and it is early evening in Lazio. We're on the border of Lazio and Umbria in central Italy. What is behind me is what's known as the Dying City, or the Civita Bagno Reggio. Why do they call it the Dying City? Well, in the daytime, you can see that this city is surrounded by what's known as the Badlands in this area of Italy. Badlands quite literally because of the volcanic rock and the seismic activity. And that's why this city, Bagno Reggio, is called the Dying City. It actually continues to die, even though it's 2,500 years old, because of the type of rock that keeps crumbling around the side of it. And so it's getting smaller and smaller, and in some ways, of course, is dying. But it really brings this area to life. And when you come to visit it, it's so unique. It looks fake. It looks like there's a green screen when you're standing in front of it. And it's a very special place also for Catholics, and something to keep in mind in terms of going off the beaten path, because here you discover Saint Bonaventure. Saint Bonaventure was born in the early 13th century, and he actually was cured miraculously by Saint Francis, and eventually will become the biographer of Saint Francis and also a general in the Franciscan order. So this city has a lot of religious meaning because of Saint Bonaventure, and also I think some very serious religious meaning and spiritual meaning because of the idea of dying. We think about this in our Christian faith, right? It is in that surrendering, it is that dying to self that is something so beautiful and so important, because we have to give it over to God, offer it up, and put it at the foot of the cross, as my mother used to always tell me, if we are going to be born again in a new life in Christ. Christ. And so this is why I love this area. And if you're coming to Italy and you want to go to Rome, that's wonderful with all the churches and the importance of Rome as the eternal city and the home of the Vatican. And of course, Florence for the David and so much other great artwork, or Venice because of the beauty there. So much to see, but try to go off the beaten path to a place like this. Now, even though Bagno Reggio has become very popular with tourists, it is a little bit of an effort to get here because it's, as we said, in the middle of the countryside or the Badlands of Italy. It's well worth it, though. So being here in front of the Civita, the dying city, I want to leave you with a few points to ponder and some questions. When you think about something dying, do you think about it as something beautiful? And are you willing to die to yourself and see that as something very important in your relationship with Christ? Are you willing to go off the beaten path with the Lord? Maybe pray in a different spot. Maybe if you are planning a pilgrimage to Italy, to not just think, as I mentioned, about going to those large cities, which are important, but to venture off to find something unique and new. And last but not least, how often do we really remember that it is in the dying, as St. Francis told us, that we are truly born to eternal life? And if you ever come to Italy, to go off the beaten path and visit the Civita, Bagno Reggio, in Lazio, on the border of Umbria.
So I encourage you to reflect on these questions. Do you think about something dying as something beautiful? Are you willing to die to yourself to grow in your relationship with Christ? Do you remember that in dying in Christ, you are truly born to eternal life?
I do hope you check out the Saints in Italy series. It was so beautifully produced. The visuals and the editing were done so well. And again, you can find that at ewtn.com/Saints in Italy. Reflections from the dying city of the Civita, Bagno Reggio, the birthplace associated with the great saint, Saint Bonaventure, a doctor of the church. And here's a quote which ties directly into what we were discussing in that Saints segment from Saint Bonaventure. If you learn everything except Christ, you learn nothing. If you learn nothing except Christ, you learn everything. Now, if that doesn't say it all, and if that doesn't summarize what we were talking about in that video clip that we played for you, I don't know what does. And that's the way St. Bonaventure lived his life, all things Christ, right? That's what my pastor always told me, my spiritual director, all things Christ. And we need to continually die to ourselves if we are to be born again to eternal life. And that is why I love the town of Bagno Reggio, because it's technically dying, because it keeps getting year after year just a little bit smaller, but it continues to rise above this very ominous valley and location in Italy and remind us of something very, very beautiful. Thanks for listening. We'll be right back on a Tuesday. St. Bonaventure, pray for us. Hope you're having a great Tuesday. It's July 15th, and I'm very excited, always. Great segments with my friend Kelly Salomon from the Cardinal Newman Society for our Newman Guide News, which we do once a week, and she had the fabulous idea to bring on a very special guest to honor his great work at Belmont Abbey College, President William Bill Theirfelder. And he is, as he told me during the break, he is having now a redeployment, not really a retirement, but a redeployment from Belmont Abbey to the next assignment that God gives him. Welcome to you both. So, Kelly, let's talk about your connection with the good doctor and why you felt it was important to bring him on this morning. And we're so glad that you did. I have a lot of questions for him, but I'll let you kind of do the introduction for us. Thanks for joining us.
Sure. Great to be back with you, Teresa. And I'm so thrilled that Dr. Theirfelder, the president of Belmont Abbey College, who's led the college for the last 21 years, is able to join us today. He has truly transformed the college, strengthened its Catholic identity, and we've been thrilled to recommend Belmont Abbey College in the Newman Guide. And I'm really excited for your listeners to hear a bit about Dr. Theirfelder's story and the impact he's made at Belmont Abbey College.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for reminding us this beautiful article that was done by the Register on Dr. Bill, and you can find it at ncregister.com. And the headline is, "A transformative tenure at Belmont Abbey College's outgoing president found his job in the Register." So let me talk to you, Bill. First of all, what led you to Belmont Abbey College? And it's great to talk to you again. We were chatting during the break, and I was asking you if you remember when I spoke a few years ago. And the one vision that is so clear in my mind, and the Register mentions your stature, 6'8". When you came up on stage, you didn't even go up the stairs. You just literally hopped onto the stage because your legs are so long. And I was like, wow, I have that image of you in addition to being at your beautiful school and meeting so many wonderful people. But it's great to talk to you again. Good morning.
Yeah, Teresa, thanks so much. It's wonderful. It's been too long, actually, since we've had a chance to be together. The reason I stood up on the stage that way is because I was trying to save time. Like, the steps were all the way around the side, and I was trying to keep the thing moving, so... I guess it was a little bit wild looking, but that goes with really long legs, I guess.
Mm. So how did you end up at Belmont Abbey College? Take us back.
Well, again, it's kind of a long story, but my whole life has been divine I mean, everybody's life is divine providence, right? Whether you recognize that or not, but it's true. I mean, God is always working in you and through you, and so I had no intent of ever being in higher education. I had been in sports medicine and sports law and sports business, and I was reading the National Catholic Register,
right?
And out of the corner of my eye, I caught the word Benedictine. It turned out, I looked over, it was an ad for the president of Belmont Abbey College. I've never heard of Belmont Abbey College before, so I don't know why I didn't go back to reading the article. But for some reason, I read the article or the ad, for the presidency, and at the end of it, I did something I never did before. I cut it out, and I brought it home to my wife, Mary, and I said, what do you think about this? And at first, I think she probably looked at me like, what are you thinking about this? And we talked about it for like 5 minutes. That was it. There was no further discussion. Nothing more was going to get done with this thing. But I kept coming across the piece of paper for the next few days. And it was, I don't know, on the fifth day, I'm in my office. I'm president of a company in Pennsylvania. We have a great life. There is no reason to live. We lived in Hershey, Pennsylvania, right? So if you love chocolate, we're in an ideal place. And we were there. We're happy. We got a great parish. We had great friends. I had a nice job. We have a great place to live. At the time, we had 8 children, and life was good. I mean, there was no reason to change anything. As a matter of fact, we had just redone our entire house that we knew we would never, ever get the money back for if we ever sold it. But we were convinced we were going to be there for the rest of our lives. And, of course, God, laughed at that one. And it's the fifth day. I see the piece of paper again. It's like in my folder or something, and there's a phone number on it. And I can't tell you. I mean, I can. I know where it came from, but the inspiration to call it up, it just only popped into me that I felt compelled to call this phone number. I call up. This guy answers the phone. The first thing I said to him, look, you might think I'm crazy. I am not looking for a job, but can you just tell me more about this? And again, after about 40 minutes on the phone, the guy says, I think you're the person for the job.
Wow.
Now, being from the Bronx, New York, constant hustles happen very quickly. I figured this guy'd be asking me for a credit card number in about 10 minutes. You too could be a college president for, $500. But I said to him, I was taken aback by that. I said to him, well, what are you thinking here? And he said, well, I need to meet you right away. He goes, we've interviewed 50 people. We've selected 5. I'm about to present them to the Board of Trustees, but he goes, I really think you're the person. I need to meet you right away. Now, this is, it's a Tuesday. It's at 3 o'clock. It's now 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which is the hour of mercy.
Right.
And I said to him, well, when's right away? And he goes, I need to meet you this Friday. I said, I can't. I have a meeting with Dick's Sporting Goods in Pittsburgh on Friday. As a matter of fact, I'm in Pittsburgh right now, and I just met with somebody from Dick's Sporting Goods. So, boy, you talk about wow. I don't even know how to make sense of that all. But anyway, he said, I need to meet you right away. Friday is when I need to meet you. And I said, I can't. I have a meeting with this, meeting in Pittsburgh. And he said, I'm flying through Pittsburgh on Friday morning.
Oh, my
so
gosh.
I said,
what are the chances of that?
I said, okay. Yeah. I said, okay, God, I'll go meet him at the airport. So I met him early in 6 o'clock in the morning at the Pittsburgh airport. And I said to him, here's my background. He's asking me all these scholarly questions, and I am not a scholar. I mean, when I went to the University of Maryland, they told me my major was eligibility. So that's my scholarly background. So for 2 hours, he's asking me these questions about, and I said, look, I'm not a dean, I'm not a professor. I don't have any of that background. And so at the end of the 2 hours, I think he's going to say to me, hey, be on your way. But instead, he catches me completely off guard, and he says, I'm now convinced you are the person. Are you still interested? And I heard myself say yes. And I remember leaving the airport thinking, I just told this guy I'm interested in being the president of Belmont Abbey College. I've never seen it before. There wasn't even a website to really go look at. But I have always trusted in divine providence, so I put it in God's hands. I went to my meeting with Dick's Sporting Goods, and to be honest with you, I almost forgot about it. About 6 weeks later, they called up and said, would you and your wife come down? And we said yes, so we came down. And if anybody hasn't been there before, you should come see it. Belmont Abbey College is just gorgeous.
It's gorgeous.
And we drove
it's
up,
beautiful. Yeah.
And it's this beautiful brick Gothic buildings that, by the way, the monks dug up the red clay, formed them into bricks, dried them in the sun, designed the buildings, and built those buildings by hand almost 150 years ago. I mean, it's remarkable. But we drove up, we saw them, we kind of took a collective breath. We then went into the basilica. Nobody knew we were there yet. And we went to the very front. Nobody was in there. And at the top of the altar at the basilica is a beautiful statue of Mary, Help of Christians. And she is alive to me. I mean, I'm seriously, she's alive. And Mary and I prayed a rosary, and we just had such a sense of peace there, because we were praying for discernment. Is this just crazy, or are we supposed to be here? And the peace just got greater and greater as we met more people. And about a week later, I come back to accept the job, and Abbott Placid's driving me to the airport, and I said to him, by the way, how many people applied from the National Catholic Register ad? And he just holds up one finger. So you talk about providence. I was the only person to apply from that ad, and I'm the one who gets the job, and I'm the least likely. I mean, God has such a good sense of humor making me a college president, right? So it just goes to show it has to be grace.
Yeah, it is. It's all grace, and the fact that you were really feeling the fact that you should say yes, even though you didn't realize it at the time. You realize looking back now what happened. So we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, Kelly, I want you to talk about your relationship with the good doctor and why you see him as such a great, we can go on and on, why he's such a great example. But I love the fact that he wasn't like the typical person for this job, and yet you look at what was done and has continued at Belmont Abbey College in terms of transforming it into this wonderful, bastion of Catholicism that's doing so much good on so many different levels. We'll continue our conversation again on our Newman Guide News on a Tuesday, having a great conversation with the Belmont Abbey College president, William Theirfelder, and of course, our friend Kelly Salomon from the Cardinal Newman Society. So Kelly Salomon has done such a great job with this segment, the Newman Guide News on Tuesdays in the Cardinal Newman Society, always open to her great ideas. And last week she wrote me and she said, what do you think about me bringing Dr. Bill on? I said, oh my gosh, I love him. He's amazing. I would love to have him on because I met him and spoke at the college, as I mentioned, and I just knew of his work. So Kelly, let me ask you why you thought it was important to bring Bill on with us this morning to talk about the influence he's had on Belmont Abbey College. What does it mean to you?
Yes. Dr. Theirfelder has done so much good for Belmont Abbey College and really the renewal of Catholic higher education overall. It's such a great shining example now at Belmont Abbey College. I'd love for him to share more about how he strengthened the college Catholic identity, what we've seen with the Honors College at Belmont Abbey, with the integration of sport and virtue on the campus, building up the St. Joseph Adoration Chapel. There's so many great examples. Dr. Theirfelder, if you can share a bit more about how you've strengthened the college.
But wait, Kelly, I want to hear how you met him, though. How did you meet Bill? Tell us that first.
Dr. Theirfelder, well, we have a great connection. My husband and I were graduating from Mount St. Mary's Universities with our master's degrees in business, and my husband was all lined up for a job in finance. I came across one ad for Belmont Abbey College's tennis coach. So I'm hearing some similar things in these stories that we've been sharing today. So my husband applied because we both just read Dr. Theirfelder's book on sport and virtue, and we were really inspired by it as athletes ourselves. And we really wanted to contribute to what he was building up at Belmont Abbey, of how he was creating this strong Catholic culture, of how he saw the pursuit of excellence fitting in all aspects of a student's life, including their athletics. And so my husband has been the tennis coach here now for 11 years, and we've been so grateful to be a part of what Dr. Theirfelder has built up at Belmont Abbey.
Yeah, Doctor, you've also done so much in addition to sports and virtue. I mean, you've also done so much in the pro-life area as well. But your background is interesting because you're a licensed psychologist. So how does this all work together, do you think?
Well, let me start off by saying that God uses the most inadequate instrument to accomplish His will, so there'll be no mistaking His will. So everybody keeps giving me all the credit, and you know what? You just captured it. If you wanted to know why Belmont Abbey College has transformed, it's not because of the grass or the bricks or anything else. It's because of the people that have come there. God has been calling people to Belmont Abbey College, and Mike and Kelly are. I couldn't pick a better example of God in His mercy and love wanting the best for Belmont Abbey College by sending them. I mean, Mike is one of the most extraordinary men you'll ever meet. When you talk about the development, when we talk about sports, sometimes people are thinking, oh, well, there's the bad things about sport. It's not sport that's bad. It's us. It's what we do in sport.
Right.
But when you have people like Mike Salomon, who is our head coach, we have a complete understanding of what it means to be a human person in body, mind, and soul. And it's about the development of that whole person. And Mike does that in such a remarkable way. So it's not like you have to give something up. It's not like you say, well, we're going to be really good, holy people, but we're not really going to be very good at what we do. It's just the opposite. It's like we're called to excellence and virtue in every single part of our lives. And Mike and Kelly are just such incredible examples of, first of all, a beautiful marriage, incredible parents, beautiful children, incredible contribution to the world and certainly within the Catholic Church. So it's one great example of why Belmont Abbey College has so transformed. It's because people like Mike and Kelly keep coming. As a matter of fact, when I was first took this job, Father Mike Scanlon was the president of Franciscan, and I knew him. And so I called him up and I said, I took this job. I said, what's your advice? And he said, well, I have to tell you honestly, for the first 3 months I was here, I stayed home and prayed till about 11. It was more effective, And so what the thing is, people give Father Mike so much credit, which he deserves. However, what I've always been so amazed at and inspired by were the people who joined him at a time where, to be honest with you, most people would just not come, And so I look at Belmont Abbey and I just say, look at the people that God has sent, and He keeps sending. I mean, our faculty, our coaches, our staff, administrators. I mean, it's just remarkable.
Yeah, it is. And I think as well, what you've done is the enrollment. So people like Kelly and her husband, when you bring on good people, they attract more good people. It builds upon itself, right?
Absolutely. And that's what's happened. I mean, we've tripled the enrollment since I've been there. And again, it's because people are drawn to people. As a matter of fact, what's interesting is God put Belmont Abbey College in the middle of the Bible Belt. I mean, we're the only Catholic college between Virginia and Florida.
Yeah, it's kind of like EWTN, the middle of Alabama.
Yes, it is. It's like a Mother Angelica, I mean, the whole state of North Carolina is only right now currently about 4.5% Catholic. So God put us here for a reason, and I believe He put us here to evangelize in a place that, didn't have many Catholics, and many people didn't understand Catholicism. And so what's amazing is that when people come to the college, whether they're Catholic or not, they are immediately drawn in because, first of all, the charism of the Benedictines is to welcome each guest in persona Christi, as Jesus Christ. So it's like no matter who you are, where you come from, what your background is, we love you. Come on in. And people sense that immediately. And again, the people that have come have that capacity to love and to give of themselves and to sacrifice for others. And that is like the most powerful attractor you'll ever find, right? I mean, love is the most motivating thing to any human being. And so that is why so many more students and, again, faculty and staff and so many people have come to the Abbey.
Yeah, it's amazing. We're talking with Dr. Bill Theirfelder, the 20th president of Belmont Abbey College, and he announced recently a few months ago, back in February, that he was stepping down from this particular position, retiring August 2nd. But, of course, he said he's looking for his next assignment, being redeployed by the Lord. And I love that because it reminds me of the analogy of being in God's army. We're all out there on the front lines, with standing up against spiritual warfare and attacks on the church. Also on the phone with us, of course, is Kelly Salomon, who joins us every Tuesday for our Newman Guide News from the Cardinal Newman Society. Kelly, how many people are interested now in Belmont Abbey because of what Dr. Bill has developed over the years?
Well, I hear it personally from families all the time who call me up in my role at the Cardinal Newman Society. Our web traffic to the Newman Guide online has grown substantially. We're reaching hundreds of thousands of families online every year. We are also bringing back the print version of the Newman Guide this fall so that families can find a good, faithful Catholic college. And, we only recommend about 10% of America's Catholic colleges in the Newman Guide, and that's why Belmont Abbey is such a shining example, and I'm so grateful Dr. Theirfelder was able to come on and witness to, how a Catholic college can strengthen its Catholic identity and draw in more families that are looking for an education like this.
Yeah, I love to see, Doc, the students. I cover the March of Life every year for EWTN, and I love to see the kids from Belmont Abbey College. It's always a really strong presence. Do you find that the graduates are like the Kelly Salomons and her husband, although they didn't attend Belmont, but like them in terms of sticking with their faith and understanding what they learned about the Catholic faith at the college level and carrying that on into society? Do you follow up on your students?
Absolutely. And by the way, we love seeing you at the March for Life. You're usually up at the cameras there with EWTN. You got you're in the skybox there.
Yep.
So it's great to see you. We usually wave as we go by. But yeah, that's what that is. To be honest with you, what is a college about? I mean, you could say, well, it's about getting an education. Well, it's not just this utilitarian idea of getting some knowledge. It's about, again, the development of the whole person. And so the formation is just as important as the education that you're going to receive. And Abbot Leo Haid, who was the first abbot and bishop of North Carolina and of the Abbey, he, during the prayer of blessing of the cornerstone of the administration building in 1886, said, "The work and prayers here shall spread God's blessing over this beautiful country in the years to come, when perhaps few of you who are listening to me now shall be among the living." And I love that because the work and prayers is the ora et labora of the Benedictines.
Right.
And the way that it's going to be spread over this beautiful country in the years to come is the students. They are the fruit of the work and prayers here, and they are quite literally God's blessing that is being spread over this country. And every graduation to me is like a beating heart. These students are leaving, they're going out, they've been formed, they've been educated, and again, they're sacrificial people. They know how to love others, they know how to give, they know how to, just love God and love their neighbor. And it's just inspiring to see, and, we're going to change the world. I know people are very, very much in despair with all the things going on in the world today. It only takes one person, and we got thousands of people leaving Belmont Abbey that are doing this, and these are the future parents and husbands and wives of parents, future careers, workers in all different fields. They are going to make the difference. They are going to change the world. And by the way, Cardinal Newman Society Schools, Patrick Riley's done such a tremendous job there, and bringing us all together just further strengthens that vision. You can see it so clearly when you look at the other institutions in there of the students that are leaving and going out into the world.
Well, you know what I think is so encouraging, and Kelly and I talk about this every week, being able to really embrace your faith as a Catholic doesn't always happen necessarily on a quote-unquote Catholic college. And you know this, Dr. Bill, because there's many colleges that have that title but don't really apply the faith and actually discriminate against the kids who are trying to just live out their Catholic faith and follow the teaching. Kelly and I were doing a story a few weeks ago about a student, bless her heart, at another university, which is Catholic, technically Catholic. And she is a convert to the faith, and she went to this Catholic university thinking this is going to be great. I'm going to just excel in not only my studies, and I'm really going to embrace my faith and learn so much. And she ends up being like an apologist, but constantly battling for 4 years. Now she is an apologist. She works for Catholic Answers, so it's a Romans 8:28 situation where she learned a lot. But I just can't even imagine going through that. When you become a Catholic, you're so excited about the faith. You go to a quote-unquote Catholic college, and then you end up battling every single day. Not the case at Belmont, which is so refreshing.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because many of the other schools in the Newman Guide are in more Catholic areas where you'd say 95% of their students are Catholic. Again, God put us in kind of a mission territory. He put us where there weren't a lot of Catholics, and so we do the important work of not only supporting those that are Catholic, but also hopefully inspiring through love and drawing people into the Catholic faith. And every year we have many conversions to the Catholic faith at the Abbey. One thing that's interesting is you would think at a Catholic school you might not need something like Focus, which is the Fellowship of Catholic University Students.
Right.
We have Focus on campus that's so integrated into our campus ministry you wouldn't even know the difference. We have like over 200 students in Bible study alone. I mean, it's really amazing, and so it's a vibrant life. As a matter of fact, we had this wonderful thing we did. I recommend this to anybody in any organization. We read the entire Bible from beginning to end continuously last
Wow.
year, and it was unbelievable. It was 24/7. And I remember I was reading one night at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and the wind was blowing, and it was dark, and I felt like the Holy Spirit there. And we had a speaker, by the way, so this was being projected out. And it was amazing to even listen to yourself reading the words of God. It was just inspiring. It was just wonderful. And so there's so many wonderful examples of how God is working, through and in us at the Abbey.
So I know you said during the break when we were talking, Doc, that you were hoping to come back and teach. Anything else you're praying about in terms of how God will use you in the future?
Well, I'd like to come back and teach only because I love the students. I'd like to spend more time with them, and I'd like to do some things related to, for example, sports psychology, so that our students get a better understanding of that. It's not this narrow view or this secular view of what it means, mental skills or something. But it's body, mind, and soul, and you work on all three because we are all three of those things at the same fraction of a second. And the other area that I'm getting back into is, before I started all of these things, I used to work with professional athletes, especially in the NFL. And so I'm looking maybe to get back into doing some of the sports performance work I did before, and bring kind of feel my. I have 10 children now. I said 8 when we left. We have 10. I have 7 sons, and there's a number of them that I'd like to see if we could create a little bit of a family business.
Oh, wow. Well, whatever you do, I know it's going to be blessed because you have God at the center of it. Great to catch up with you, Doc. Thank you so much for joining us. God bless you in your future ventures, and thanks for all you've done and continue to do for Belmont. Kelly, great idea, my dear. We'll talk to you next week on our next Newman Guide News on Tuesday. Stay tuned. We'll let you know what's coming up on a Wednesday on Catholic Connection. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Catholic Connection on a Tuesday, wrapping things up on the Feast of St. Bonaventure. Coming up tomorrow, of course, it will be Joan's Rome. She will give us up-to-date information on Pope Leo, the audience, and also the latest on tickets, or maybe not, for the canonization. The Vatican has decided no tickets will be handed out. We'll talk about that tomorrow. I think that's not a good idea, but nobody asked for my opinion. Not that they should. I'm just saying it's going to be a little bit crazy. So if you are going to the canonizations in September of Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati and Carlo Acutis, you need to get there bright and early, as in at the crack of dawn, if you want to get a seat, because it's going to be busy. Very honored to have George Weigel joining us in the second hour on his Pomp and Circumstance book. Very excited. And don't forget, it's Wednesday, so that means we'll also have Shrines and Wonders Wednesday. Not sure what I'm going to talk about tomorrow, because I did cover St. Bonaventure, the Civita today, but who knows? Italy has so much to offer. It is the gift that keeps on giving. So we will take you to a particular section of Italy, or maybe talk about another saint. I can't wait. So again, looking forward to that. Joan Lewis, Shrines and Wonders, George Weigel, and of course, 2 Cents. So I do hope that you can stay tuned for the entire 2 hours tomorrow. And don't forget, all the information on our programming and all the great stuff that we do, radio, TV, online, can be found at EWTN.com. Have a great Tuesday. Talk Jonah Wednesday. A domani. Ciao, ciao.